Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing very well. So we're back on the interview scene and we've got a chap that contacted me a while back. It's lovely to have him on. We've got Havoc86. Say hello, Havoc.
Hey, how's it going, people?
And he is, or he has been, a Hornet and is now a Super Hornet AME. Can you give us just a very quick description of what AME is, please, Havoc?
Your AME is your avionics mechanical for safety equipment. So we do the O-box, like the breathing apparatus for the pilot, the cockpit pressurization, the avionics cooling, anything that has air in the aircraft, we do it.
So what we've got here is a very thorough synopsis of Havoc's career, what he's been up to. And I shan't read it out because it's quite long, but if you want a snapshot and read that, there's all your information there.
The Hornet is USN, not USAF aircraft, so I can't speak on USAF because I saw some questions were USAF. We have a different mission and a different purpose. I also can't speak with some things in the Hornet because I don't know if they are classified and I don't want to jeopardize my job, so to speak. And I had to consult a friend of mine who is the Martin Baker rep of the East Coast that was a supervisor of mine back in 2005 timeframe. So I don't know everything, and I'm not going to tell you I know everything. But what I do know, I will speak on. I was as an AME for about, what, 12 to 14 years, but I worked in QA for the last year and a half of my career. And like I told you, I was going to CAG 5. Now I got here and I can speak on CAG 5 also. For your first question, no. We would never put a pilot's life in jeopardy. Our pilots are their friends, their family. They have a mom, they have a dad. So if the seat is if the seat goes wrong, they're going to let us know. And if we can't fix it right then and there, that jet is down. But we always have spares. There are always spares for everyone.
Roger, that makes sense. So safety is going to be your number one priority, presumably.
Yes, it is.
In 2010, there was a ejection seat death in a typhoon. A Spanish airman died. He ejected okay, but the harness on his seat failed. And after that, he fell to his death. After that, they grounded the entire RAF typhoon fleet while they sorted it out. However, they did say to the RAF pilots that in the event of the necessity, an emergency, they would still be expected to fly.
Yeah. So even though the seats were unsafe, if Russia came over or whatever, they would still have to fly.
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet that seat probably came from Martin Baker, but I would tell you I can't speak on any Spanish or any other country's seat or their way of doing things. The only thing I know is how I do things and how I work. That's it.
Let's carry on. Now, some of these questions we may have to change on the fly to talk about Navy instead of USAF, but we'll see how it goes. What is included in the survival pack of the ejection seat, and is it the standard for all aircraft under USAF, so let's just change that to USN command, or can it vary depending on land ops or flying over water ops? So obviously you're going to have to edit that question a bit, but okay, tell me about this survival pack because I didn't even know it was a thing.
One of the questions later on is asked about how the Hornet evolved and the seat evolved. So you have Scoot 3 and Scoot 10. I don't know what's in them, but I know I do know there is a raft in them because I've had pilots that have ejected and they came out safe. I've only lost one pilot and he never had a chance. We can discuss that later if you want to. But I don't know exactly what's in there. I hear there's a condom in there because you can use that to keep certain items out of the water. So you take like a book and put it in a condom and it's dry.
I'll be interesting to know if anyone out there does know in the public comments, assuming you're allowed to tell us. Okay, what is the time frame if you need to replace the ejection seat in a fighter in live conflict situations? Minutes, hours, or is it more complicated?
For the most part, before we even go on deployment, we know where we're going to leave. So your 728 day, which happens every 2 years, you check all your aircraft, you check all your seats, you make sure they're done before you even leave. So while you're on deployment, there is no pulling out because a CAD went bad or because your PDRM is going bad or whatever it is. Because it's hard to order CADs while you're on the...
Out of interest, do the seat ever go wrong on a deployment? You know, and if so, would they like kick up an error on an error page or something?
I wouldn't say it would never go wrong because it's always a mechanical failure. But we always have a backup to everything. So while you're on a carrier, there are always little things that some people wouldn't think that were there that are still there. So, like, say your PDRM, oh, we didn't notice this, it went bad. There's probably one on the boat. So you can swap that in the jet in probably, I say, 10 to 30 minutes, depending on who you have with you.
Do you have only one standard ejection seat in the Hornet for all the models and variants, or have the seats evolved in time like the aircraft itself?
Just like the aircraft evolves, the seat evolves. So from when you get your Alpha and your Bravo Hornets, you have your SDU 5 and 6, which your 5 sits in the back, your 6 sits in the front. But if it's a single-seater, then you have just the 5. And with the new Hornet, the Charlie and Delta, you have your SDU 17. So it's like an SDU 17, I believe it's like a 1/A or a 2/A or 9/ whatever it is. We just call them NACEs. But there's a time delay difference between both of them. Because your back seat has to go before your front. Your aft seater will always go before your front, but if you only have a single seater, you want him out as fast as possible.
Roger. So the Wizzo goes before the pilot. Is there do we know, is there a reason for that, or is that just how it is?
Because if the front seat went first, it's going to burn the back seat guy.
Oh, right, okay, yeah. That kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Okay.
Yeah.
This is really interesting timing, Havoc, because yesterday, you know, we do our kind of silly testing videos. Yesterday, we tested how low can you eject in an ejection seat. Obviously, just in our simulator. I don't mean in real life. And what we did is we slowed down the ejection process in our game so we could see the various rockets burning and the various time delays between the pilot and the Rio and stuff like that. We just found it very interesting. So it's good timing that we're doing this now, and showed how advanced and smart an ejection seat was, a modern one.
It depends what aircraft it is and what seat it is, because the SDU 5 and 6 I don't believe is 0-0 capability. But your SDU 17, you could be sitting on the deck, not moving, and you can eject and be safe.
Roger, yeah. 0-0 capability, for anyone that's watching, by the way, means, I believe, that you can eject A, when the plane is not moving, B, when the plane is on the ground. That's right, isn't it?
Yes, 0-0 capability means that you could be at 0 altitude, 0 airspeed, and
Roger. And what a lot of people don't understand is that it's only really modern seats that have that capability. A lot of people see pictures of of Cold War planes kind of going in for landings and crashing, and they think, oh, why didn't they eject? And it's because a lot of old ejection seats, you couldn't eject when you were low. You couldn't eject when you were slow. You just couldn't do it. You had to go down with the plane. That's just something.
To an extent, I can't speak on those because I don't know much about anything outside of the Alpha through the Foxtrot Hornet.
Roger. Okay, let's blast on, Havoc. Stand by. Do you have to disarm the seat and secure it prior to removing it from the cockpit in order to avoid accidents?
To be honest, we don't. Even according to our publications, we don't have to. There are certain CADs that have to be either loosened or removed, but the whole seat, no, we don't.
Roger. So you just unbolt it, disconnect it, and out she comes.
There's actually only 2 bolts that hold the whole seat in.
Wow, that's a bit worrying. Okay, how much is the complete... you probably won't know this, but I'll ask anyway. How much is the complete seat set cost? And is it the price to start with, and then just the cost of refitting them on the cycle? Have you got anything to add to that?
I have no idea. The Navy buys it, and I just install it in the jet, pretty much.
Roger.
You can go to the Martin Baker website. Maybe they'll have more info.
Roger. Viewers, if anyone knows the cost of these things, it would be genuinely interesting. I know the cost of obviously a private buyer is going to be significantly different from a Navy cost, but I just think it would be interesting to know. I wouldn't have a clue where to guess. Okay. Do you need to wear a protective gear for removing the explosives that are propelling the seat when the pilot is ejecting?
The explosives we use, be honest, no, there is no equipment we wear. If we're on aircraft, we wear a cranial in case we fall, but that's just in case we fall. Mm-hmm. But once the seat is out and it's in the shop and we're de-arming, you can do it in underwear and a t-shirt.
Okay, that's cool. I guess it's all we talk about explosives and stuff. I guess it's all kind of they're in sealed units, and I guess if you know what I mean. So
they come from India.
Roger. I used to. It's a different thing, like a miniature version. I used to take cars to pieces, and modern cars are full of explosives. You wouldn't think it, but they are. They're 8 to 10 different explosives on them. Some of them quite powerful in form of airbags and tensioners on seat belts and stuff. And I used to take them off, and yeah, but getting them to actually explode by accident is a very difficult thing to do. Have you, out of interest, ever had any of those explosives go off? Those rockets go off? Not you personally, but ever heard of any rockets going off?
I heard one went off in the shop, the work center before I got there, and I told them I would have dropped the turret. Or I don't know how much I can say because I speak a lot of 4-letter words, and I've been struggling this whole time. So
that's okay. We don't care. We say the F word and the S word all the time. So
I would have shit myself. Tell you the truth.
Swearing like a sailor. That's what we say. We like that. Okay, very good.
Yeah, there's a reason for that.
Yeah. Okay. Is the seat just scrap metal after an ejection, or can it be recovered and refurbed?
Okay, so one of the people I had to talk to, she's a Martin Baker rep for the East Coast. I call her Mama Jen. She was my supervisor back in 2005. I had to make sure because I've never seen a seat eject and then be reused. So she said no. They're a one-time.
Roger. I mean, that does make complete sense because anything could be damaged in so many ways, couldn't it? Bent and whatnot. So, yeah, makes sense.
You want to hear something crazy? You want to know the reason for the ejection?
Yep.
Cap, I found various...
How old are you? Have it?
Take a guess.
Not a clue, have it?
A spot to sit.
Is that right?
Yep, that's what his initial purpose is, a place to sit. So we just take our secondary purpose really.
Okay, cool. Artie, what were you saying?
Yeah, I found various costings for Martin Baker ejection seats. Anywhere, depending on the model and how many you're buying and such, between 140k and 420k a unit. In 2007, the US Navy bought 172 or ordered 172 Martin Baker ejection seats for FA-18E, 18F Super Hornets and EA-18G Growlers, and they were coming out at about 232k a unit.
So they're $250,000, those Havoc.
Goodness!
More than a Ferrari. Don't drop them. For God's sake, don't drop them.
I did not know that. Goodness gracious. Oh, but good.
Wow, that really is amazing, isn't it? I honestly wouldn't thought there'd be that much. I guess there's more to it than you think. I guess there's a lot more tech in there than you think, right?
Yeah, the order for 172 seats was 39.7 million. Sorry, that's dollars.
Yeah.
US dollars in 2007. They've gone up since then, I expect.
I'm about to start making seats.
Yeah, we're in the wrong friggin' business, aren't we? Jesus. All right, guys, very good. Let's push on. If you have watched Behind Enemy Lines movie, and interestingly, we just did a video on that, and it had a really interesting ejection sequence, probably completely bollocks, but interesting. We can recall a spinning disk drive on the seat that they were trying to destroy. Oh, I remember that. Is this a real thing from the past, and what kind of info was stored on those seats? Strange. Hang on just a second. Strange that the pilot is separated from the seat in the air and that discs just lands with the empty seat somewhere, perhaps in the wrong hands. So what he's saying is there was kind of like a kind of old school kind of computer hard drive on the seat, which contains valuable information, which worked with the movie plot. Is there such thing on those seats, or was that purely just Hollywood?
I actually typed this question out because I watched your video on Behind Enemy Lines yesterday, actually. Good video, by the way. But no, there is no disc on the seat. And what that type was, like Cap's good video showed, a lot was done just for movie effects. The only thing we have either in a crash or an ejection is a DFIRS, which stands for Deployable Flight Information Recording System. Or you got the CFIRS, which is a captive flight information recording system. But regardless, it's just a yellow box, and all it shows is which your altitude was, what happened, what your switchology was, and so on and so forth. So it can tell you exactly what the aircraft was doing before the crash. The black box.
Roger. Yeah, that makes complete sense. Okay, very good. So, okay, no funny hard drives of mass graves and stuff. Fine, that's okay. Next question is, wait for it. Okay, how many pounds of explosive? I think explosive might be the wrong word. I mean, it's rocket fuel, isn't it? These are rockets, not explosives.
No, explosive.
Okay, are strapped to the seat, and is it solid propellant always or liquid? Any idea?
7.6 pounds, I believe it is. Wow. Because we're only allotted so many pounds and at one time, and it turns out because the net explosive weight of the whole hangar. So if you got 5 squadrons, you can have 500 pounds. Each squadron gets 100 pounds.
Oh,
so we can only have so many seats de-armed and sitting in the shop.
I see.
But it's 7.6.
I see. So it's like handling bombs. I remember we had a bomb expert, an A-10 bomb expert, and he said you can only put so much explosives in a certain area in case something happened. So you've got the same problem.
Exactly.
It's probably for your benefit.
And they asked us a few months ago. They said, "Well, why you always lock your door?" I said, "Because we don't want y'all coming in here." They said, "What if something happens?" I was like, "Send a helicopter. You come get us from the hole in the roof."
Yeah. Right. Very good. Okay, what is the life expectancy of the seat pyro cartridges, so explosives, belts, springs, and so on? Is it time frame or flight hours that are clocked to the aircraft?
What we usually do is every 2 years for like lap belts and the leg garters and stuff like that, but it depends. If every CAD that's on that seat has a different shelf life, open life, or whatever it is. So what we like to do is as soon as you open it, you install it. So you don't have to calculate differences or anything like that. So
yeah,
usually about 2 years, but it's anything from 2 years, but you got SFDC kits that are in the aircraft that might last like 12 to 15 years, somewhere around there.
Roger. So I guess it's a bit like servicing a car. You know, every year you take it to its service, and then whether the bits that they change need changing or not doesn't matter. They just change it, right?
It's like having a car that has to be serviced. Like 2 people have a car that got to be serviced every 5,000 miles, but one dude puts 5,000 miles every 5 years, but one dude's put 15,000 miles in a year.
Yeah. Sure, absolutely, that makes sense. Okay, let's push on. When you remove the explosives, do they dispose of them or check them out and use them again?
Again, it goes back to the shelf life or the open life of the explosive. It depends. Well, every 728 days, we remove everything, look at it, make sure it's good for another 2 years, and then we'll put it back in the seat if it is. But if it won't be, then we have to send it back to India Head, and we don't know what they do with them.
Roger. Okay, so you send them off, and okay, you don't know what happens. That's fine. Okay, stand by. What is the pressure setting on the Hornet when in flight? I don't know what that means. Is it constant RO? Is it automatically adjusted? Oh, so what are we talking about here? The pressure setting. Does anyone know?
Probably means inside the cockpit.
Okay. Is it okay? Let me carry on. Is it constant? Is it automatically adjusted in flight or by the pilot? I might feel better flying on sea level pressure, and Cap might feel better above sea level pressure. How do you take that, Havoc, and how do you answer that?
We have two valves in the aircraft that regulate air pressure. We call one the CPR, which is cabin pressure regulator, and the other one is a cabin safety valve. So up until about 8,000 feet, it's going to stay wide open. So whatever pressure air actually is up until 8,000 feet, it's going to be that. After between 8,000 feet all the way up till I believe it's 23,500 feet, it's going to regulate to be at 8,000 feet. So once you go to 23,500 all the way up, it's going to stay a certain pressure below that to keep the pilot safe.
Roger. And is that all automatic?
It is automatic. The valve I'm sorry.
Okay.
The valve does do that, and we have tests for it, and it's actually become a real big thing in the Navy within the last 5 to 6 years.
Roger. Okay, that's interesting. Right, that answers the question. Next, is the pressure in the cabin a result of engine bleed air or onboard compressor system?
There is no onboard compressor system for anything that has air in that aircraft aside from old box, and that's just everything comes from bleed air pretty much. I can explain old box later on if you want.
Yes, we'll get that later on then. So do you mean literally there's a pipe coming from the compressed part of the engine and going to the cockpit, in basic terms?
Not straight to the cockpit, but we do take all of our air off of the 7th stage of the compressor section off the motor.
Very interesting. Okay, excellent. Right, so is there a backup system in case one system providing cockpit pressurization is to fail, but the canopy is sealed and in normal status?
The canopy is sealed, but there actually is no backup, sadly. The only thing we have is the seal. I'm sorry, I'm trying to make sure my PTT is still working. The only thing we have is that CO2 canister that's in the seat pan that I asked about earlier. If the pilot realizes something, he can reach down and pull the green ring, and he can still breathe, fine, like nothing's wrong. But he needs to get down to about 7,000 feet, below 8,000 pretty much.
Roger. So just to revisit that, I didn't quite get that. You said there was a CO2 canister in the cockpit?
In the seat pan. There.
Oh, right. And is that for some kind of is that for emergency pressurization?
That's for ejection. Like pretty much if he's at 30,000 feet, he ejects. So he has, I'd say, it depends on how hard the pilot is breathing, but maybe 5 minutes of air in case he can't get down low enough, that type of thing.
Roger. Okay, very good. Right, next. Is there a air purification system in order to keep the CO2 in check? Is that going to be OBOGs?
Yes, I was about to say, this is where we go back to the OBOG. Okay. OBOG stands for onboard oxygen generation system, which pretty much means that you take air off of the motor, you pull all the impurities out of it, and you send the pilot pure oxygen.
Roger, but what do you know what stage you're taking? Are you taking that pre-burn from the engine, presumably?
7th stage of the compressor section. And the motor we use is a F404 GE402 or 404, depending on what aircraft.
Roger. So that comes out highly compressed, obviously, a massive PSI. It goes through some kind of filtering, some kind of magical filtering system, and then comes in as oxygen to the pilot's mask.
We have a bunch of valves that regulate pressure all throughout the system. We have 13 subsystems, 12 or 13 subsystems in the ECS.
Very good. Okay, that makes sense. Right, let's continue. I've heard the pilots are hitting 17 Gs on the ejection, or is this wrong?
I have no idea exactly how many Gs they hit, but I will say this. From the time that you pull the handle until the time you're coming out safely is less than 3.
Roger. Let me just write a new question down. Okay, very good. Right, where do we get to? Is there a gyro on the ejection seat, and how is it working when the seat is fired?
No gyro, but there is a G lock and pawl, which if the seat is moving up too fast, it's going to lock so that the PDRM or the drogue gun does not fire too fast. Because it depends on which seat it is.
Roger. Can you go a little more into that? You said if the seat is moving up too fast, why would the seat move up too fast?
On initial ejection, you have underseat rocket motor that puts out 4,800 pounds of thrust in 0.25 seconds.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. So, yeah, it sounds like an accelerometer or something. Okay. Do you have to replace the ignition cables every time you are to service a seat?
We do not have ignition cables or tubes or the question is kind of, but we do have on the SDU-17, we have an electronic sequencer, and then we have cables that come off of that, and we test the electronic sequencer every 728 days, so every 2 years.
Roger. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, again, I don't know planes, but in cars, we used to have something called, well, in all cars, if you drive a car in the world right now, you'll have something called an SRS harness, which is a separate wiring harness and sequencer that goes to your airbags, and we can test that as well with OBD or whatever. So it sounds like a complex version of that, I imagine.
It is. It goes. Yeah, it's the brain of the seat. It's like an ECU of a car, but for the ejection seat.
Roger. Okay. Where are we? What is the force required to pull the ejection seat handle? Is it tough or to do so? And is there a danger you can pull it off when getting out of the cockpit? So, not spelt very well, but what it's saying there is, have you ever pulled a handle before? And can you damage the handle? Is it hard to pull?
I actually understand that really well because they tell us as AME, all of our rules are written in blood. So somebody's done something that wasn't with the regulations and it died because of it. So in the hangar in Oceana, there was I guess a F-14 mechanic. So he removed the pin and it accidentally pulled something and it shot him up into the ceiling with the seat. But it turns out it's I had to talk with Mama Jen, and it's more than 8 pounds of pressure because you don't want it to be really light, like a hair trigger type thing. But we have push and pull checks on all our seats. So we'll have a sheet and tell us what it should be. So we'll check how much that is, and then we have our the seat pan. It has 2 pins on it, and we'll check that also. But she said more than 8 pounds.
Roger. Okay, that's good. So you've really got to give it a good pong to get it going. Okay, very good.
Yeah, there might be why you got to hit the thing 3 times.
Roger. Okay. Yes, because you can easily press that once. Right. Is it true that a machine is folding the chute for the seat and takes tons of pressure to recompact it? So this is putting the parachute inside the seat. Is that right?
I have no idea how they pack the chutes. So we get the chutes from FRC or whoever it is. They bring them to us. We put them on the seat. That's it. But I do know. If you look at a SDU-17 versus the SDU-5 or 6, we call them hard pack or soft pack. The SDU-5 and 6 are soft. So on top, we will actually have to push down the tie knot on top or to get the scissor mechanism where it needs to be. But we can do it as a person. But I would bet that packing the parachute is probably a lot harder than just pushing down the flap.
Yeah, I've never seen it in this, but I think I've seen it in a Russian jet. They have to pack them all in the back of the Russian planes, and yeah, it requires a massive amount of force. There's a huge spring under tons of pressure that will push it back out. Okay, guys, where are we? Is the cockpit equipment and the jet cooled? Sorry, let me try again. Is the cockpit equipment and the jet cooled prior to mission and pilot getting in the aircraft, or is it not cooled?
I'm sorry. We don't care. If it's 110 degrees outside, you're going to go outside in 110 degrees. You're going to jump in that jet and you're going to fly it. That's all you got.
Roger. So just get on with it as it is. Roger.
Yes.
Okay. What is the cooling agent? So part of your job is equipment cooling, avionics cooling. So when this avionics is being cooled, when the jet's going, do we know what the cooling agent is? Is it something to cool that, and is it replaced after each flight, like the air conditioning in a car?
No, we have a turbo compressor system in that aircraft, and we have 2 heat exchangers. And what the heat exchangers do is you take hot air. It's like if you ever had a turbo car, your intercooler for the turbo. You pretty much got 2 of them. And then you have your compressor section, which just compresses the air until it gets cold enough. There is no agent at all in that aircraft. It's just how we treat the air that makes it cool off or heat up or whatever we need to do with it.
So it's just cool with air, a bit of mechanical air. That's all it is.
Yeah, we just mess with the air. There are some spots where we actually need hot air, and we'll, take a tube off of that and be like, oh, we need hot air over here. Run that hot air over there.
Yeah, I mean, it makes complete sense, because the one thing you don't want to do is add weight to the aircraft. And if you're going to add aircon systems in for this, then it's just weight on the aircraft, complexity on the aircraft.
We usually say lighter fighter program.
There you go, you see. Right, well done. Right, stand by. Is the ejection sequence and the timing different for a single and 2-seater Hornets? Yeah, we've already talked about that. We've heard that the Rio goes out before the pilot for the obvious reasons. Anything you want to add to that?
No, that's about it. The back guys are always going to go before the front seat guy, but there are different ejection modes. So you have one that's we can solo it. So if you got a Delta, and there's only one guy flying it, you can set it to where when that front guy pulls, the back seat will not move. The front guy is still going to leave because we have no idea of telling exactly where the seat's going to go if there's no weight in it. The seats are set to have so much weight in them. So there are pilots that actually have to have a waiver signed because they're too light for the seat.
Ah, wow. That's interesting. Yeah, sorry to keep interrupting, but there's a couple of interesting things there. Yeah, again, car seats have weight sensors on them, and nowadays, and if you are too light, you won't set the sensor off, and you'll get a seatbelt warning. And an interesting thing is, and this won't be your area, but one thing I recently learned is that when the ejection seat fires in a plane, it gives a massive force on the plane, because you said nearly 5,000 pounds of thrust is like that is like a jet engine power, it's powerful. And as well as pushing the pilot upwards, the equal and opposite reaction, which I still can't get my head around, but apparently it's true, pushes the front of the plane down with 5,000 pounds of thrust, and actually causes the nose of the plane to dive down. We were actually testing. We saw that modelled yesterday when we were testing it in DCS. I find it really interesting. But yeah, okay. Now I don't really understand.
I would say about that, you're pushing 5,000 pounds against a basic weight of a Hornet unloaded. Like Charlie Hornet, unloaded, no pylons, no anything. It's about 24,500.
Roger. Yeah, I mean, you add in like another quarter of the weight on nearly, in terms of pound. Okay, now I don't really understand the next one, Havoc. You're gonna have to help me out. What is the AME troubleshooter's job?
So one of the things I did when I was in VFA 34, VFA 106, and VFA 94, I was an AME troubleshooter. So whenever any of these issues would happen, my job was to fix it as fast as possible, but at the same time, it was a cross train. So if you get blink codes, that's an airframing issue. I had to try to figure out, what do I need to do for these blink codes, get it fixed, get the jet up. But if I couldn't, if it got too far, I'd be like, all right, I'm calling my airframer. He was a specialist in that spot. So if it was a seat issue, I got to check seat caution, sir. Safe and rearm your seat. And it's safe again. Let's run this motor up because it hit that switch. This and this, we'll see this and this, that, and the other. We have to talk to each other all the time. But our job as a troubleshooter, period, not an AME troubleshooter, but anybody, is to fix that jet, to get that jet up as fast as possible.
Roger. Okay, good answer. Next, can the cooling system overcome the heating from all the systems and components to an extent that the pilot is comfortable in the cockpit, or do you have the pilots complaining all the time that it's too hot?
Oh, we get a lot of complaints about it being too hot. I started laughing, but our main purpose is to cool our avionics. The pilot gets whatever's left over. So say the avionics needs, money wise, $200. I got $250. It's like, all right, so I give the avionics $200. The pilot's like, I need $300. Well, dude, you just get 50. That's all you get. That type of thing. That's how the air is based off. Because we got to get the jet up. Because if the jet's up, then the pilot's up. That's how it is.
Roger. We interviewed a Rio of Super Hornet a little while back, and he said the one thing he remembers is how uncomfortably hot it was in the back because there just wasn't enough coolant to cool it down.
Yeah.
And he just sat there burning.
Yeah. They use it. They'll get over it.
Yeah, they will. They will get over it. Okay, very good. Let's continue. How different is the legacy Hornet to the Super Hornet from your job's point of view? Is it the same aircraft but with bigger alloy wheels, tinted glass, puff-up engine, or is it all changed? Airframe, avionics system, computer power, and so on. Or is it a different jet in a similar skin? How do you, from your point of view?
It's the same as an AME. It's the same stuff, but in a different place. Mm-hmm. So if I got to change the turbine on a legacy Hornet, I'm going under the jet and I'm pull off panel 42 and I'm gonna rip it out. If I'm on a Super Hornet, I'm gonna go up top. Can't remember the panel number because I don't know Super Hornets like that. But it's the same thing, different place. The Super Hornet has a dogtooth linear design. It's supposed to be smarter. So for us, whenever we had a problem with it and we didn't know what it was, we would go under the jet, we'd rip all these panels off, we'd hook up gas, and then we return an aircraft and we'll go to 90 CDP and then we'll see what our pressures are. But a Super Hornet, all you gotta do is sit in it, you start it up, you turn it, and you look at a DDI pretty much, and it tells you what all your pressures are. You don't need any gauges, you don't need anything. It's just the future of the Navy. That's the
Roger.
It's so much smarter.
Roger.
I still don't like them though.
No, I was going to say, I thought that was coming. From your point of view, personally, which do you prefer, the legacy or the new ones, and why?
Because I've worked on them so long, I prefer the legacy. Because I tell people, I was like, the legacy is going to tell on itself. Whenever there's something wrong, it's going to snitch. It's a snitch, pretty much. But they're too smart. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my PCT working. They're too smart for their own good with those Super Hornets. But I'm faster with a legacy Hornet than some people are with a Super Hornet.
Roger. Yeah, I'll just say exactly the same thing. Not with planes, but with cars. I've worked on old cars. I have my own little business. I worked on old cars, 20-plus-year-old, and I worked on modern cars. And although exactly the same, modern cars are smart, really smart. They can almost sort of fix themselves in a way. I much prefer working on the old ones because easier to get to parts, easier to tools. You just use old school tools. You don't need a whole sequence of new tools, and I just prefer it.
Yep. You just been around them longer. You know them. Yep. Once you know them, they tell people that work on Super Hornets they say they're not mechanics. They are, but they don't know how to troubleshoot like that because they didn't have to look for the problem.
Yep, they just get their computer out.
That tells you everything. The Super Hornet is smart as hell.
Mm-hmm. Roger. Okay, good answer. Right, let's carry on. Do you have seats on standby so you can just put in a serviced one and worry about the old one later?
No. Whenever we get a jet for somebody, whatever seat is in there, that seat is actually tied to the aircraft. So I can't take a seat from one jet and put it in another one.
Oh, really?
Wing is going to tell you excuse my words, but the wing's going to tell you fuck off if you try to.
Why is a seat tied to a certain aircraft?
Because we track it like that. So it's like it's not like putting a tire on a jet or a tire on a car. It's like changing your whole motor. Your whole number changes once you do that. So the motor that was like for me, my S10, the motor that was in it is long gone. It's been done. So what I'm putting in there will never be tied to my S10. But they want to know, hey, when this happened, what was in there? Where did this come from? Who worked on it? Who did the testing checks? Who changed the CADs? Who, is, I wouldn't say it is, but it's not politics, if that makes sense. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you said, these things, it's not like putting a, alternator on a car. You need to be completely trackable. You need to know what seat, when, in which plane, when, how many hours it's racked up, how many Gs it's pulled, so on. So it does make sense when you think about it.
Yes, because our whole job is to make sure our pilots are safe.
Yeah, very good. Okay, let's carry on. What if the Hornet is to overshoot the deck or snap the cable and end up in the water? Is the ejection seat any good if you are already in the drink and did not have the chance to punch out prior to this? Good question. I'm sure it's happened many times.
They have, but I've seen videos of aircraft snapping the wire. I've never personally been on a carrier where a jet overran and snapped. I've been where they missed, or a bolter is what we call it, or whatever. But as long as they don't go in the water, I would expect them to be able to eject and be safe. But in the water, I probably wouldn't. I would just pull my MOR and I'd jump out, because we have an MOR on the seat. So you pull that, you disconnect your home, you can actually walk out. You can actually walk out the aircraft with your seat pan attached to you.
Oh, really? That's interesting. Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Okay, where do we go? Why the US Air Force ejected a bear, not sure what that means. Can you tell us a bit more about this story? It sounds weird, and we've got a link here. Bear shot out of... Let me go and have a quick look. I don't know what that is. Have you looked at this question? The time the Air Force shot a bear out of a B-58. And it was actually a bear being shot out of a B-58. Does anyone know about this, Artie? This is right up your alley.
No, don't know what that one is.
I got no idea.
Right.
I think that bear used to live down the bottom of RT Street, actually.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I want to say, because the B-58 was one of the first, I want to say it was one of the first aircraft with instead of it being a single seat ejection, it was a pod that came off the aircraft itself with everyone inside it. So they were testing the pod itself.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Bit weird why they had a bit of bear in it, but I guess that's a USCF back then. By the way, that was Ito speaking there. Ito is one of GR's many success stories. He is a F-16 mechanic, and we interviewed him a few weeks ago, and he's now joined GR as like a proper full-time member and everything. And so, yeah, cool. Anyway, sorry to bring you in there, Ito. Let's carry on. We'll leave the bear for now, although it was an interesting story. Right, you mentioned you were deployed on the USS Enterprise in 2006. Can you please share with us what it's like to live and work on a massive boat, and did you manage to adapt to it quickly?
No, I still haven't, and I got to go on the boat in a few months. So, when I was on Enterprise, I'm obviously in the Navy, but I was attached to a Marine squadron. So whenever they would go somewhere, there was 11 of us. We would go out to augment the Marines. But those are still some of the best friends I ever made, and I still keep up with a few of them. I'd wake up, hit the shop. They was like, "Oh, well, we need you up top." I go up top. I just stand there in case a pilot had issues, or help him out if he did. If not, I go walk him to the catch, and I'd final check him, which is the final checking is really important. And you're the last person to look at that aircraft. And if something happens, that's you. That's your fault. You're the reason why that dad is not going home to his son or his daughter or whoever it is. And I'd go back downstairs, I'd wash up, and I'd go to sleep.
Roger. So good memories then.
Yes. Miss those people, to tell you the truth.
Roger. Okay, good answer. Next, is the ejection seat adjusted if the pilot is skinny or if they're really heavy prior to flight?
Nope, one size fits all width wise, but you can move it up or down so many inches. I believe one seat has more adjustment than the other between the SU 5.6 and the 17, but width wise, none. But they're pretty wide. Like I'm 6'1", 260 something pounds, and I can sit in one of those with no.
Roger. And you said a pilot could be too light for it to work. What happens if a pilot was too light? Could they just not fly in it?
No, they can fly. I believe we had one of our pilots. I'm sorry, I'm eating also. One of our pilots, nice lady. She was fun to talk around or hang out with. She'd come down, she'll bullshit with you. But she weighed maybe 110 pounds or something. And it's like, yeah, we don't know what she's going to do if you ever have to eject. And she said her favorite thing to do was bonding.
Okay, I get it now, because you said earlier on that the ejector seat might come up too fast, and I didn't understand that because there's no reason for it to come up too fast if it's got a set.
No. It's not too fast. It's once it comes up, we have a certain trajectory that it needs to take, and then it's accounted for the weight of the seat plus the weight of a 150-pound person.
Yeah, right. And so that trajectory is going to be different with a really tiny person, isn't it? As opposed to a giant fatty.
Yes. And it's going to be different from me for somebody that's 90 pounds.
Roger. Right. I get it now. Okay. That all makes sense. So, okay. That's fine. Right. What part of the avionics tends to heat up, and to what extent? Radar?
Is the only thing. The radar is the only thing I would say, but I'm not 100% sure. Not 100% sure. I don't know if the radar versus the exit air system, or you have the raw gear, you got the INS, you got a lot of stuff that we cool. I have no idea what heats up more than anything else. I do know we get more radar hots than anything else as far as issues I've seen.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up question. What overheating issues have you seen radar? And it makes sense. That's the thing with the most power, electric power. So, makes sense. Okay. What is the backup plan if the cooling system is to fail? I guess there is something that keeps the pilot safe by not being cooled in the cockpit. I get the feeling, by the way this is going, there's not going to be a backup.
No, we don't have a backup, to tell you the truth. The only backup we will have is we have a scoop that was, trying to find a word, I'm sorry. A scoop that was lower down for the cockpit, and then we have an FCS scoop on the side. But those only cool flight critical components, I believe. I don't know exactly what they cool. I just got to make sure they work.
Roger. And do those scoops open automatically during overheating, or is it a pilot button?
The cabin scoop will open if you've ever seen a Hornet sitting on deck and it's off, the cabin scoop will be down because it has to have so much pressure for that scoop to go up. The FCS scoop is not going to open unless the pilot actually open it. Or when you're right-hand side actually in DCS, if you look on the right-hand side, there's one that says FCS EMER cool. That opens that.
Roger. You know what? We've got to go and try that now in DCS. We've got to go and try, because a lot of those buttons, I just don't know what they do. It'd be interesting if we pressed it and a scoop opened up. That would be interesting.
To be honest, I'm going to do the same thing when we get off.
Very good. Okay. Is it true that early ejections were punching through the canopy instead of jettisoning the canopy first?
I can't speak on anything but the Hornet. I don't know anything other than that. I should tell you the truth. I joined the Navy to work on the Tomcat. I joined, and 2 years later, it was gone. And I was mad.
Yeah, don't blame me.
But between the Tomcat and the Hornet, your canopy is going to go first. It has to. But if something was to just so happen fail, those seats, they're going to punch through that canopy. There are 2 rings on the SU-17 that take 900 pounds to break, and they don't slow it down at all.
Artie, can you go and research that quickly about if we used to have breakable canopies? on stuff.
Your Harrier.
Harrier, yeah, because it has explosive wires on it, doesn't it?
Yeah,
There
It
are
has dead cord,
aircraft
like
that
that did as well.
there are aircraft that have what we call frangible canopies, and when you pull, it burns the line in the canopy, so that the canopy is easier to break.
Okay. So in a Harrier, you go pretty much through the canopy, which is already pretty much broken at that point. Then.
That's probably why you see those lines you see running on top of the Harrier. I don't know, but I believe they're explosives, and they don't blow up the canopy, so to speak. They just burn it.
it's dead cord. It shatters the canopy because the Harrier was British design. That's why it's got that.
Okay. I've never really thought about it, but very good, very good. You know what we're gonna have to do now, because
I've lowered the bitrate cap on the channel to make it easier
And
for
you?
him to.
Roger, I get you. Send Artie.
Yeah, even the Hawk had a explosive canopy as well.
I remember the lines. Okay, so it sounds like an English thing. Now, like I said, I've done a slowed down version of a DCS F-14 ejection. Wouldn't it be interesting for me to go and do a slowed down Harrier thing to see if the glass actually shatters? Obviously, you don't notice in a split second in the game, but that would be interesting. Okay, guys, let's punch on. Havoc, walk us through. You've kind of done this, but you might want to add something. Walk us through one day on the USS Enterprise from waking up and going back for R&R. You've kind of answered that already, but is there anything you want to add to that?
Not too much, man. Me personally, I just like to wake up, do my job, do it well, and then go home at the end of the day. But the worst thing as an AME ever is to lose a pilot.
Yeah, right. Because that's your responsibility, isn't it? If once they've ejected or whatever.
Yes, and I actually had some. You could probably jump on Google, look at 2012 FA-106.
Stand by. Let me go and get
We
it.
had
2000 and what?
2012. It was, I believe, April.
And what was? Give me a couple of words to search. I got 2012.
VFA-106 ejection.
Is it the Virginia Beach FA-18 crash?
Yes.
Stand by. Ooh, nasty.
They both got out.
Yeah.
They both got out, and nobody in the apartment buildings were hurt at all.
Right, okay, so they had ejected safely before the crash, right?
Right before. They were about 2 stories up before they punched out because they were fighting to get to the ocean so they could crash a jet.
Yeah, right, okay. It's amazing no one on the ground was killed. I mean, look at that picture.
Everybody was at work. It was probably maybe 12. That was aircraft 411. That was a perfect launch. I remember that exact day.
Yeah. Okay, well, these things happen, and someone was looking over them, obviously, because that's amazing. Very good. Okay. Let's continue then, guys. What are the main components of the Hornet environmental control, and are they easy to access? Now, from what you've been speaking about, I've learned quite a lot already, but anything else you want to add, and ease of access?
There's so many parts that we don't have time to cover all the parts. Our whole purpose is to take air and you force the air to do what you want it to do for either I was about to say OBOGs or Avionics coolant or the pressurization, and then the rest of it you just like, I don't need this, throw it over. But ease of access, it depends on which Hornet you're talking about. If you're talking about the Super or Legacy, and then it also depends on who you're talking to. So the Legacy Hornet is so much easier to work with than the Super Hornet is. But to somebody else, it might be different.
Roger. Yeah, I guess you're like me. You've kind of prefer the old stuff. Okay. What is your plane of choice? If you could just jump in and take it for a spin, I'm assuming that means any plane, not just the 2 Hornets. And I'm guessing you're going to say Tomcat, but I'll see what you say.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was going to say.
I thought you might.
I've been in an L-39 Albatross a few years ago, but I don't think it compares to a Hornet. Like the speed, the maneuverability, anything. I don't think it compares to a Hornet. But the Tomcat, I have a love for the Tomcat.
Yeah.
I've hated the Hornet since I was in 7th grade until I started working on them.
You're like me. I've always hated the Hornet. That's why I call it the Wagnermobile. There's nothing specific
I
I've
know,
got
I
against
watch
it.
all your videos.
I just find it so, I don't know, so sexless. Whereas the F-14 is just, it's big, it's inefficient, it's smoky, but it's sexy. Whereas the F-18 is just like designed to be perfect. It's got no extra fat on it. It's just not sexy for me.
It is. It was sadly it was just an update. You know, everything upgrades, and the Hornet, for the job the Navy was doing, it was an upgrade from the Tomcat.
One jump. Okay, let's punch on, guys. How do you see the USAF, let's change that to the USN, in 20 or 30 years' time? Same structure, less jets? What kind of jets?
I have no idea. I had 4.5 years and I retired, but I would say maybe some 35s. I know 35s are probably coming to the fleet, and then I think 35 in the Tomcat or 35 in the Hornet. That's going to be a monster combination.
Roger.
35 in the Tomcat is going to be a monster combination.
Roger. Okay. Yep. And that's what it's looking like. How did you come to know Grim Reapers, and do you fly in DCS?
Actually, I was watching you guys for about 6 months before I got my DCS set up, and I finally got it. And when I chose my sticks, I chose them because I heard the X56 was a good one. It's not the world's best, but it's great. And then I found out that you had a whole setup that people could download so they can get a basic configuration of theirs. So I have an X56, and I got rudder pedals, I got everything. But since I got here in Japan in January, and I got to get everything set up for here. Back at home, I was comfortable, but here I can only play for maybe a half an hour, 45 minutes, and my legs hurt.
Yeah, well, I know that feeling. Too. I've only just, after 5 years, I've only just moved to rudder pedals. But, yeah, okay, that's fine. Right. Release your button, please, Havoc. You are transmitting.
Oh.
Thank you. Next, the worst part or system to work with on the Hornet, the one you would rather leave until the next shift. So what do you not like working on, in particular, on either the Legacy or the Super Hornet?
I will bet anything from A through G, even the growlers, is probably cabin pressurization. Depending on which model it is, like the Alpha Charlie, the Delta, Alpha Charlie, and Echo, your cabin pressure CPR valve that I was talking about earlier are pretty easy to get to. But on your two-seaters, they're a pain. They're in that right-hand side kick panel. And it's hard to grab onto them. I'm a big person. I have to do that crap with one hand.
Roger. So is that valve? What is it, down by the seat, did you say?
It's if you were to sit, like if you sat in your car, where your shifter is, it's by your right knee, around under the shifter on your right knee. But it's either that or the SMD.
Roger. Okay. Well, you seem to know what you're talking about there. Fine. Next, have you ever had a serious heating problem reported on a Hornet to the point where we are talking about melting plastics and smoke and stuff? Anything like that?
I've heard about smoke, but not melting plastics. There's a part in the jet that it's rubber, plastic, or whatever, and it comes out pretty easy, but not melting.
Roger. Okay. Kind of similar to that. Have you ever had a serious cooling problem in the Hornet where it got too cold for the pilot? That's interesting.
I've only had one pilot complaining about it being cold. Now I want to tell him to shut the fuck up
and do your job. Nice. I like Havoc.
That's not something you hear often at all.
Roger. Havoc's my kind of man. Okay, very good. Is there a problem with water vapors or misting inside the cockpit or instrument panels? That's an interesting one.
Yes, it actually can be. So one of the parts is a ACS or was it ACS step flow controller that's in the aircraft. One of the ways I used to troubleshoot it was to unplug the cannon plugs on it while the jet was turning. So one of my buddies, he was turning the aircraft and he was shivering his ass off. And then one of the dudes ran out because we found out the jet was turning. He's like, "Yo, I got this." He's like, "Hurry the fuck up, get up here!" It was so cold and it was spitting water out on him, and it was probably 30 degrees outside.
Roger. Wow. Okay. Very good. Right. I mean, because misting, condensation, whatever you want to say, is obviously a historical problem in planes as it is in cars. I remember one solution in the 60s, I don't know if it was contemporary, is that you would have on the windows, if you go and look at your MiG-15 in DCS, you'd see attached to it a little tube attached to the window full of pink salt, I think it is. And that's how they would suck the moisture out of the window to stop it misting. Same thing, I had a ride, my friend got me a ride on a Nimrod 1960s aircraft for fast taxiing, and the windows are all steaming up because it's an old plane, and they had these little crystal salt things. Do you know anything about that, RT?
No.
No.
Something for someone to research. Okay, right, so we've reached the end of the interview, What we're going to do now is pass it over to everyone for questions. So, can we please have the stream? You guys write your questions now. Write it with the prefix question, so I know what's a question, because I've got a lot of stuff to look at. Then before that, we'll have verbal questions from Discord. Before we do that, I want to ask my questions. So, have you ever had any maintainers like you injured working on AME, I guess mainly ejection seats, but any gory stories?
Not that I've seen. Well, before I got to my shop, like I said, the cat went off in the shop because a guy decided to use a screwdriver to do something that a screwdriver wasn't called for, and I've never used a screwdriver on it. And it blew in the shop. And I told him, I said, I would have shit myself right then and there. I'm not messing with y'all. I don't fuck with y'all. I ain't doing this. I would have shit myself right there in the shop. I would have kicked him the hell out. But personally, no. We're usually, I tend to try to be pretty safe with everything that's going on. That's because life is first and your job is second.
Roger. Okay, good answer. Also, related to that, we're talking about the 17G or 17 plus G of these ejection seats. Pilots that have successfully ejected and lived and stuff, I don't know how many you've dealt with, but have you had any kind of, do they get injuries? And what kind of injuries do they get from these successful ejections, do you know?
Back at that, the one you looked up back in 2012, one pilot, his face was scratched up a bit, and I believe the other pilot, his ankle was twisted, and that was at maybe 40 feet out of the air. But I've had that. I've had one in Key West, and I had one in El Centro, and every pilot I've had that's pulled their handle has lived.
Excellent. Good. Okay, well, that's my questions done. Next, I'm going to hand it over to Discord. One at a time, please. Who wants to go first?
Yep.
Peas.
So is there a max altitude they can safely eject? So say Angel's 20 or whatever. And then,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, what's the max altitude they can safely eject?
Your max altitude for your seat is going to, it depends on which seat. If you got the SJU-17, your max altitude is going to be the max altitude. Because once you punch out, you have an electronic sequencer behind you, and you have two probes that stick out, and it tells the sequencer how fast you're going and what your altitude is. And it'll actually hold part of the ejection process until you're low enough for the parachute to safely come out and for you to safely float down.
So let me get that right. So with that seat, you can eject as high as the plane can go, to say 50,000 feet, and then you will stay attached to your seat by the sound of it until a certain altitude, let's say 10,000 feet, at which point the seat will separate. Something along those lines.
It's higher than 10,000 feet. I believe it's 12,500, but I'm not.
Roger. Very good. Okay. Very good. Next question, please. Okay, you've had your chance. I'm moving on to... is that you, Artie?
Yeah.
Jen?
I've just wondered, I mean, would you recommend your job, your training, the career that you've had to other people? I mean, has it been fun?
It has been because of the people I've met, but the stress of if you screw up anything, somebody dies. You have to have you got to be headstrong to be an AME. We always say, if you're an AME, you screwed up in the head. We laugh about it, but we are all screwed up. We joke around, but when it comes to arming something, we don't mess around with that because that's not. I'm gonna go home, but it's gonna be somebody's dad, somebody's mom, somebody's cousin, somebody's uncle, somebody's son that doesn't make it home. And like I said, I've only had one pilot that has ever died, and he's never had. He didn't have a chance to eject.
Roger. Have we talked about that pilot? Or do you not want to talk about that pilot?
Nathan Pulaski. Nathan, his call sign was Danny. Last name Pulaski. He was a cool pilot. It turns out, from what I believe, I haven't actually read the report because I didn't want to, but he crashed into the underside of another aircraft.
Ah, right. Yeah, I see. Yeah, absolutely. We've had that happen plenty of times. Okay. Fine. Is there anything else, Artie?
No, that's great. Thanks very much.
Roger, yeah. And I see what you're saying, because at the end of the day, if you're working on a seat and you're laughing and you're messing around with your buddies and you miss just like one screw or one bolt or whatever, whatever you work on, then that's that item defective, and then that guy can't eject, right?
Yes, for the most part. Well, I want to say that if a screw is missing, no, he's not going to eject. He might, but I'm not going to take that.
Yeah, I get you. Okay. Anyone else in the Discord that wants to ask a question? Okay, guys, we're moving on to the stream now. Cornbread, question. Is the flat top... these might be weird questions, we'll see. Is the flat spin Top Gun ejection scene that killed Goose plausible?
God, don't even finish that question. We hate that as AMEs. No, that is not going to happen. Your canopy will always go backwards, and it's going to roll back towards the back of the jet. We hate that as AMEs. We don't even watch Top Gun anymore.
Roger.
Yeah, it's the same thing for us when going through my training. We asked the same question, and we got yelled at as well, because pretty much all canopies go backwards and to the left.
Right, so that's Hollywood bullshit, right?
No, not back and to the left. They will go straight back towards the ass end of the jet, because you have these little rockers that sit there. And these rockers allow the canopy to slide forward and back. But if you were to try to lift it straight up, you can't do that.
Roger. Remember, you two work on different planes, yeah. We've got a Hornet. You're a Hornet. You're a Hornet man. Havoc. Ito's a Viper guy, so you've probably got different systems.
I bet you his probably work the same way mine.
Okay.
It's roughly the same, yeah.
Okay, guys, let's carry on. Who packs the chutes? In the Army, we have dedicated riggers for airborne operations. Do you mean the pilot or the seat? So I'm going to come back to that one there.
A&D for the Navy packs our chutes and our seats.
Mitch, question. Serving on such a large carrier, did you ever get lost in it, or was everything logically marked up?
It is marked, so you will. Everything is a circle on the carrier. You got your 3 level or your 3 deck, and you got your O3 level. So your galleys on your 3 deck. So you drop down 3 from the hangar, boom, there you go. But if you can, you have to read what we call bullseyes. So it'd be like my old berthing was O2 245 tack 3, whatever it was. So O2, all right, I got to go up 2 levels. 245, that's 245 frames back. And so, you got to go aft once you get on the carrier. And then 3 just tells you, oh, it's going to be on the port side. It's 2 frames, or basically 2 frames to the port side, or whatever. I think mine was like O2 245-0.
Roger, very good. Next question from Ghost. Have you ever had any funny back and forths with the pilots on a problem or fault sheets? For example, something loose in the cockpit. Engineer says something tightened in the cockpit. I don't quite get it, but does that mean anything to you, Havoc?
The first part was, have you ever had any back and forth
with the pilots about a known problem or fault? Yeah, on the sheets.
Yes, that part a lot. They want to fly. They want the jets down. When the jet's down, it's down. They're not going to be able to fight that, and they're going to say, "I want to fly it." I'm like, I don't care. It's down.
Roger. Okay, very good. Right, that's it, guys. Any final comments or questions from anyone before we sign off?
Do you play any other games than DCS?
On the computer, I only have DCS, but I have a bunch of PS4 games like For Honor, most of Assassin's Creeds, and what's that other one? Red Dead Redemption, Final Fantasy 15. And I got like 6 more sitting in front of me, but I can't read the label.
Roger. Anything else, guys? Okay, guys. Well, join me in thanking Havoc for coming forward. It's always good. And I know Havoc said that before he came on, he was quite nervous about doing this, but I think you'd all agree that he did really well, answered the questions. He was just an easy guy to interview, to be honest. Just chilled out. I didn't have to push him on anything. So it was really good. Any last thing you want to say, Havoc?
I had, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5 or 6 points. If
blast away. Your show.
All right, so one of the things that's really cringeworthy of an AME is how close you guys are at takeoff. If you're that close, you're going to smoke check you. Well, not real. It's a game at the end of the day. It doesn't really matter. You would smoke check your canopy. RWR is actually, we call it raw game. That really doesn't matter. The cockpit in DCS looks really, really realistic as far as the Legacy Hornet. I don't know about the rest of the aircraft. I've only sat in a Legacy Hornet as a turn-qual person. And would you guys ever think about having an offshoot for different countries, like for the time difference thing?
How do you mean, Havoc? Explain.
The time you got... I'm sorry. PTT. Usually the time you guys fly, it's about 1 p.m. in America, so most people are still at work. But there are some guys that would love to fly with you.
I see. Yeah, now we've tried this and it ended up really badly. Well, yeah, kind of sort of badly. So what we did is, of course, this is a big problem. We fly in UK time, and so for the Americans, that is anywhere between kind of midday or before midday up to kind of 3 p.m. where you guys are all at work. Hence, you know, we've historically had a problem getting guys. So what we did was we created a separate kind of detachment to fly Grim Reapers in US time. But the problem is that they just ended up going their own separate way. They're called the Sluggers, and they're a big group. I'm sure they're very more popular than us because they're on American time, and haven't really had anything to do with us since. And so we don't want to do it again because it just wastes all our time and resources when people just go off and leave us. So that's why we're not doing that again. I've nothing against the Sluggers. I'm sure they're all very cool and stuff, and you're welcome to go and fly with them in US time. They're easy to access. But that's why I wouldn't bother doing it again. It's just too difficult.
Yeah, I don't blame you on that point, because I was going to try and fly with you guys while I was out there, but I think the time you guys fly was, I think it's 1 p.m. in America, and I didn't get off until like 3 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah,
so that's the only reason why I never tried to link up and do anything else. But now I'm in Japan, I kind of want to try to.
Roger.
But I gotta get comfortable and I gotta start training again on DCS. I haven't played DCS since November so far.
If I don't fly for 2 days, that's it. I've forgotten everything. I'm just terrible. I have to do something every day. I've got such a shit brain.
I actually got lucky. I landed on the carrier early today,
really?
And I wasn't comfortable.
Roger. Yeah, I know what you mean. Okay, Havoc. Thank you very much for coming and giving us your time and your knowledge. That was excellent. If you can have a hook up with us now with your new time zone, let us know. And we're always open. And as a general point to everyone out there, we are open to fly with everyone all the time, except there's just 2 missions you can't join in. Our Monday and our Wednesday mission, they are full members only. But everything else we do, everyone's welcome in. So just remember that. Right, Havoc, thank you very much. Rest of you guys, thank you for turning up. I'm signing off, and I'll see you guys later.
Thank you,
Bye.
Cap. I appreciate you talking to me.